Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm here with two really brilliant speakers today for our topic on landing your target role in a crowded market with Pivot. We've been doing Pivot in Progress sessions for quite a while. And every now and then, we do bring on speakers from the group that we have personally worked with on their transitions to help them achieve their goals. These are folks who are in the mid-career level, and I'll be bringing them up to the stage in just a matter of seconds. But one of the things that I'm really, really excited to learn from their experience this time is how they have navigated the current job market, which continues to be one of the most challenging, most competitive job markets. And it's been quite a ride to see, how they were able to navigate all of these, different unanticipated issues that might come up, or things that don't always go your way, how they navigated that and were finally able to land their target role. So, without further ado, I will be bringing in Preeti Varma and Yashasvee Prasad.
Hello.
Hi, both.
Hi.
Welcome again. I hope you
Thank
both are
you.
doing well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making time for this. I know, work days can be busy, and, people always need to plan things around their family, their work to make this happen. So I really appreciate you both doing this. I think where we can get started is just do a quick round of intros for those who might not know us. Um, So I can go first. For those who don't know me, my name is Arjun, and I'm the founder of Pivot. And what we do at Pivot is very simple, but also very ambitious, which is to help folks who are making some sort of an inflection point change in their career. It could be going from one company to another in the same profile, but at a better level with a better package. Or it is, sometimes changing your domain, your industry, perhaps your region, coming into the workforce after a big bit of a gap. So these are all different areas and use cases that we cover. We'll do a little more deep dive during the course of this specific conversation, and I'll talk more about Pivot and my journey itself. But for now, I'll turn it over to Preeti. So Preeti, welcome, and if you could just share a little bit about your journey and what you do today, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Arjun. First of all, I'm really thankful for you to have you brought me onto the show. I've been following Pivot in Progress for quite some time, and obviously, all the insights that you've been sharing on LinkedIn. And definitely, I think it's really useful, and I think you're giving some real world um, tips and insights to people who are looking for a job change. Definitely, I think I'm one of them who's benefited from Pivot to some extent. And just to quickly give you an introduction of myself, I'm a marketing and communications professional with almost 16 plus years of experience, both across financial services and SaaS. Over the years, I've built very diverse and expertise in product and content marketing, in communications, employer branding. Currently, in my role at Hexagon, I work. Hexagon is actually an industrial software organization. I work very closely with senior leaders in especially with respect to communication. My focus is on elevating the brand visibility, strengthening our employer brand so that we can attract top talent, and safeguarding the corporate reputation, aligning the communications with broader business objectives. So that's a bit about me.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Preeti. And over to you, Yashasvi.
Thanks, Arjun. I mean, it's a real pleasure to be here, and I echo Preethi's words word for word, literally. Uh, I'll introduce myself. So, hi everyone, Yashasvee here. I used to, literally be on the other side till a few days back. So it feels surreal to come on this side for once. Uh, I've spent about a decade now of my working career. It's been in the sales, role-wise, I've been in sales and partnerships, and domain-wise, I've been in the BFSI space, in insurance companies, insurtechs, as well as lending companies. And now I've had a, as we say in India, kaya palat, and which basically means I've changed my domain, I've changed my role, and it's been a conscious choice. So as you can see in my tagline, I'm a brand and growth partner at MORPHO-VERSE. Now I've changed from selling a product to selling a concept, and it's been a change which I wanted. I'll cover this when we come to the next part, but it's been a conscious change, and the role which pivot has played in my career transition journey has been, to not have a pun, pivotal. So what do you, Arjun?
I love that. Great. Thanks again for sharing the background and the intro, both of you. And I do feel with your journeys, right? There were multiple elements which I feel can actually really help people who are currently navigating the job market, which is one of the reasons that we also wanted specifically both of you to be part of this session. So I appreciate you doing it. Um, the first thing that I want to ask, and I think there's a little bit of a difference that both of you had in your journeys with regard to this, but the first question is around how you identified the right role and industries to target in this space. Because a lot of times, what mid-career professionals like yourselves are going through is, they're trying to understand whether they should continue exactly in the same roles that they have been in, because that's what the industry is accepting them for. But at other times, because those markets have become very competitive, very crowded, or hiring may have stagnated completely, companies are not really hiring much for those roles. So in those type of cases, you also have to think of adjacencies, maybe related areas where you have transferable skills, overlapping experience, but you need to also wear certain new hats, upskill a little bit, right? So I've seen that with both of you. For example, Preeti, with you, I remember, when we first started, there were a couple of different roles that we were shortlisting and thinking about which ones we should go ahead for. You ultimately landed on marketing and comms, which you're doing today. So I'd love to understand, Preeti, firstly from you, how was that structuring that you did in your mind around the type of roles to target, uh, and then ultimately finalize your decision? That would be helpful to kick things off.
Uh, Definitely, Arjun. But before I could go to that, I wanted to give a bit of a background, right? Like why I was finding it tough first to get into the market, right? Like anybody else, I think COVID, I was working in a remote this thing after COVID. And during that, obviously, like anybody else, I went through a lot of burnout and I decided to step back, right? And at that point, I was not in a rush to kind of get into my next opportunity. So I explored a bit of I wanted to teach at some point in life, so I explored teaching for a year. I just loved the experience of teaching, but I soon realized that that was not something that I could do long term, right? And after that, I was almost completing a 2 year career break, and I thought returning to workforce was definitely going to be challenging, but I was not prepared for how challenging it was, because there are different dynamics that were playing there at that point. Obviously, AI was one of them. When it comes to marketing, AI was one of the things that was changing for marketers. And obviously, despite the number of years of experience that I carried, I realized that whatever application that I'd sent out was definitely met with a lot of silence. And somewhere I started to kind of also go through this self doubt kind of a feeling. What really helped me during this time was kind of to take a step back and think about what I truly wanted, right? And I think it's at that juncture, I think I would have caught up with you, Arjun. Like a career coach, I think I wanted to approach it a little more strategically, because gone are the days where we are looking at it as a spray and pray method, right? Like where you apply on a Naukri job portal or an easy apply on LinkedIn, without direction, things would just come in a fluke. No. So what really helped me was kind of understanding and playing by my strengths and aligning them with the kind of roles and organizations that I wanted to fit. Obviously, I work with both startups as well as with big MNCs as well. But I realized that over a period, I really wanted to work for bigger companies, and that's one thing I was very clear about. And obviously, the tools like inclusive difference assessment, if you recall when we spoke, I think that the one common thing that came across pivot platforms frameworks or the frameworks I had worked is that the same set of strengths or values kept showing up, and I just had to kind of reconnect to them. And that's when I got the clarity that I think I definitely need to look at option one, which was marketing and, you know, comms side of the world, because I don't think and then obviously my interest area was also to look at the DEI side of things, which I expressed to you. So I think I kind of figured out there were top three roles that I would look at, but I thankfully for me, I was able to land back into marketing and comms itself. Sorry, Arjun, we're not
Arjun,
able
you're
to.
muted.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so what I was saying, Preeti, is just a quick follow-up on that, right? So I completely remember and agree with regard to the frameworks that we use to apply and kind of shortlist the roles that you're talking about. But now we had shortlisted the roles, let's say, it was, I think, marketing communications, there was branding, there was DEI and HR-oriented roles that you said. After that, also, I think there was a little bit of further fine-tuning where we said, okay, marketing and comms will be our main primary target. The others could be perhaps secondary or backup roles. So, how did you decide between all of these shortlisted roles that, okay, now I want to further double down on this, and also the type of companies that you were considering as your target companies?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing was that I had already gathered a lot of expertise in marketing and comms for sure, right? Like, and obviously, if I were to shift for into other roles that we were talking about, it required a bit of a learning curve, which I was ready to do if it was required for me to kind of bag a job, and if I had not, really landed a good response there. But the whole point being, if I were to kind of filter out everything, in terms of where I had to narrow down my focus or pursue opportunities, I realized that the there were certain specific strengths that I could really, kind of use. Like for instance, creativity was one of the areas that I really was very strong in terms of, and then obviously the other part which I wanted also was strategy. So I think these are the two areas that really, I crystallized, and I thought that this is important for me. And then I realized that okay, marketing and comms is something that I can constantly have this coming into it, and that's how I kind of narrowed down this. Obviously, some of the mentor community conversations that I've had also kind of helped me,
Sure.
uh, kind of narrow down that focus there. Yeah, and I think a lot of those mentor conversations influenced the way I was looking at the role that I wanted.
Understood. And that's very helpful, Preeti. Thanks for sharing that. Before I go to Yashasvi, I just want to share something with the audience who would have joined us today or who would be looking at this video later. A lot of times when we start these sessions where we talk about the clarity bit on your profile positioning and the target roles and industries, there are certain people who might say that, you know what, I am facing not a huge challenge with clarity. I know what I want to do. I'm facing a bigger challenge with the job search, and my resume needs to be ATS optimized. I need to convert interviews, which are usually very important, but final steps in the process. I just want to say one thing, right, before we ask Yashasvi for his feedback on his journey, is that a lot of times when we actually deep dive with people into their job search, right, and they talk to us about why they are facing challenges or why they might not be hearing back initially, many times we see that people are actually quite confused about the profile positioning and the role clarity, right? That is one of the major reasons why they are not hearing back. So Preeti, you alluded to spray and pray, right? A lot of people are actually still doing that. They may not even know the what the term spray and pray means. So spray and pray is when you are really thinking about applying to any and every role where you feel there's even a minor overlap with your profile, just because you believe that it will help you maximize your chances because you're applying to more jobs, right? But the fact of the matter is that the current job market is extremely crowded, and you are competing with highly qualified, deeply experienced candidates. So if you just apply to any random role thinking you have some good chance, chances are you're not going to hear back, because there are many other people who have thought much more deeply about their profile alignment, than you. So this is the reason we get into this part of the conversation, the profile positioning and role clarity. For those who might be wondering, hey, I just am here to learn more about how to, optimize my job applications and interview preparation. Okay, with that as backdrop, Yashasvi, I want to come to you, obviously loop you into the conversation. Now, you've had a very interesting journey yourself. I think you had made couple of transitions earlier, even before you came to Pivot, right? Um, and I think you had a very strong reasoning why you were looking for change as well. So, similar question that I had asked Preeti, which is, how did you basically build a mental model in your head which said that, okay, I know this is what I have experienced so far, but this is what I want to retain and continue, and this is what I want to leave behind and not continue with, and how we ultimately landed on the right role that you ultimately landed, which is MORPHO-VERSE brand and growth partner today.
Thanks, Arjun. So, all this essentially started with a growing realization inside me that at the life stage where I am right now, the current work was not able to give me the sense and the feel which I was looking for. And by sense and feel, I mean at every life stage, you have different priorities from your work. When you are young, you look for fast growth and you're okay with everything that comes along with it. At a stage where, okay, let's say at the stage where I was actually craving a company and a setup where I would find certain different things, and I was slowly beginning to uncover those different things which I wanted to get. With this as the backdrop, I remember reaching out to you, Arjun, and having a discussion that, as we say, again in Hindi, ki dal nahi gal raha, right? I'm not. I know I am not. This is not the place I want to be in. Now then, we started the rollout of the process for me at Pivot, at the extensive, exhaustive process. And folks, those of you who are Pivot members, you would know the process. Those of you who aren't, please go through the process. You can DM me, I'll share you the photo, but Arjun won't like it. Jokes aside, look, with me, what I had done earlier and what I wanted to do now, the bridge is what Pivot helped me to get over. We discussed, we took a personality test, we spoke, and we uncovered that one of the roles which I had done earlier, which was of an account manager, was something I could do here as well. The domain had to change from where I was to now an adjacent domain and a slightly different domain. So there would be a small and a slightly bigger transition in those respective domains. And role wise, account manager and the customer success manager is what we finalized on as the role I could look at. And the
Right.
domains we discussed were tech because it was adjacent to what I had done, and SaaS because it helped me achieve the work, the priorities which I had essentially, which was I wanted a stable environment, I wanted a peaceful work culture. I wanted a place where I could spend my time at work, do my best, and still be able to go back to my family when time and be with them. So, but the message I'd like to leave with the audience is understand at what stage you are and what your priorities are. That really is the bedrock of your any decision career wise. What domain you want, what kind of role you want.
Right.
Pay honestly comes as a very, very later step. Yeah. Arjun.
No, perfect. I think that was very helpful. And one thing that I want to really highlight from what Yashasvi just said, and feel free, Yashasvi, to add on this. But as he was describing his transition, a lot of times when people come to us, they have this misconception that a transition or a pivot means changing everything about my profile, basically starting all over again, where I have
Mhm.
zero experience, right? And that is not true, right? What we want to do is definitely retain those aspects which you feel very much aligned with, which you are strong on, and it continues to have strong future prospects in the job market as well. It's not stagnating in the job market. So those
Mhm.
aspects you do want to continue, even if that is, let's say, 30% of your experience, or it's 60, 70% of your experience. we do want to retain those things. But then there might be certain other elements, as Yashasvi was pointing out, right, in terms of like the domain of his overall target role, that needs changing. So it is important to be targeted when you are making these kind of shifts, and in most cases when we work with folks, it is these kind of targeted shifts that we make. We don't just take somebody from one environment and say, hey, uproot yourself completely and put yourself in a absolutely different environment. So that misconception, I just wanted to make sure that people understand, career shift doesn't always mean changing everything about your role. Anything that you want to highlight, either of you? I know Yashasvi just spoke about this, but Preeti, feel free to also add anything that you have on this particular nuance, which is retaining certain key aspects while also changing certain others.
Yeah, definitely, Arjun. I think, like we spoke, right? Even for me in the roles which I said, right, which we had discussed, the DNI definitely, it's very tough to kind of get that kind of a role in an organization unless you've been in the organization, done couple of things, and then moving into DNI. Because obviously, from a HR, if you've done HR, it becomes easier to move into the DNI side of things, as opposed to someone who's totally not had that experience, because it's part of what ideally human resources also does, when it comes to culture building and things like that. So I think the most important thing is how many what trans taking stock of what transferable skills you have today and how much you need to develop on it in order for you to get your next role. Because like starting, like you said, starting from ground zero is not going to help you or anybody else in the organization. At the end of the day, organization is also looking for employees who can start running from day one. And obviously, trying to look at what you have at hand and how you can present value to the organization means a lot. And that's why it goes back to the fact that you can't do a spray and pray technique. You need to have a clear role clarity. And obviously what Yashasvi said really, hit the hit home, because I think it's also important what stage of life you are in, right? Personally also, because you need to look at all those aspects when you take this kind of a decision, especially when it comes to an entire switch of career that you're looking at.
And I just like to close with one point, which is that, and I'll share my personal experience here. When I started speaking to one of the experts in panel that we were, the SaaS expert, I had doubts, that SaaS is completely new to me. I am from insurance. Kaun bhav dega? Who will care for me? But he made me understand that, some of the nuances and ways of selling and nature of the domain in insurance actually overlaps directly with how the SaaS business is. And he made me realize those point by point, and that helped my confidence immensely when I started then talking to SaaS people, going to SaaS forums,
Yeah.
and having interviews at SaaS companies. That really helped. So I would like to close with that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point as well, that both of you have raised. That, one of the things which really helps is when you get out of your head and get out of your own echo chamber, which might be built upon just, internet gyan, for the lack of a better word. But really go into the real world, speak to real people who are actually working in the roles that you are targeting, and getting their feedback. Because most of the times what I've seen is people are quite like, they're not, blatant is not the right word, but I think they're very candid with regard to whether you have it or you don't have it to be able to crack that role. We actually get that feedback from a lot of our clients, that, when I had the first session with the expert, Yashasvi, with you, it was a positive thing where they may have helped you understand why SaaS is something you can conquer despite not
Mhm.
having much experience, because of the transferability of your
Yeah.
knowledge. But many other people also tell us, the expert told me that this is not possible, and I feel a little discouraged. And we have to tell them,
Yeah.
it's a good thing, because it's important sometimes to say no to things. If you keep saying yes to everything, you will feel confused and you will be heading into multiple directions. So it's good that you got the feedback that this is actually not the right fit for you and you need
Yeah.
to think about something else. So I think both sides, if you get clarity on kya pursue karna hai, what not to pursue, I think that is, in my view, quite beneficial.
Yeah.
So either switch gears a little bit and go to the next topic here. Um, And before I do that, I just want to share with our audience, whoever has joined us so far, please do feel free to share your questions in the chat section. We will be taking up questions during the last couple of minutes in this session, or perhaps if there's something that is organically aligned with the topic we are covering, we might take it up midway as well. So please go ahead. There are no bad questions. Just feel free to share anything that you are currently experiencing in your transition journey. Um, all right. So yeah, with that said, the next thing that I want to cover is more on the things that we hear a lot about from our clients, which is how do I network in this current job market, right? And I know both of you have done this tremendously well. You have been able to reach out to the right people, many times get interviews also through this. You have leveraged Pivot's network also for the same. And it's, see, everybody knows today that networking has to be done. Like, go to any career coach, go to any 22, 23-year-old Gen Z also. They'll tell you that, a lot of the job portals are crowded. I'm getting ghosted. I'm not hearing back. So I need to build my network. I need to utilize my network. Everybody knows that. But the difference between knowing and succeeding is very vast, right? And that's what we want to highlight today, that what actually translates into success when you're networking, where people who are the right ones for you are able to comprehend what support you need or what advice you need and provide that help to you in a tangible manner, not just theoretical one-on-one, coffee chat where you don't ultimately remember even what the conversation was about. So we'll start with Preeti on this one. We'll start again with you. If you can share a bit around, like, how did you go around sort of building your network and not just reaching out to people, but getting the right kind of support from them that ultimately succeeded for you.
Okay. I think I've told this to you before when we were having our conversations about my job search, but I've generally been a very socially shy person for a very long time. Right? It was only during it was at this juncture where I was looking at, I just realized that there's so much I could have done in the last 5 to 7 years, right? I mean, obviously, I enjoy connecting with people, but networking is not something that comes naturally to me. It is not something that's very natural for me to kind of get into that space. So, first of all, I need to have a safe and supportive space to have honest conversations, seek feedback, and that takes a long time. And also the fact, I because I was looking and for a job, and then the job is also something that I wanted to happen, within a certain period, because as the clock ticks, the time keeps running in there, right? So you need to do all of this. So the minute I gained clarity on what I was truly looking for, I first started looking at different people, obviously not just on LinkedIn, but also I think thanks to Pivot's mentor community, I think that was a first safe space I could have to kind of talk to somebody on the same, in the same, vertical or domain that I was looking for a job for. Understand, first of all, where I stand today, because I'm sure we've been talking about this, right? This current job market is in such a way that the middle managers, right, they find it difficult. The mid level professionals find it difficult to kind of pivot to the next level or even find something for this, because obviously a lot of these jobs are slowly, not being available due to the AI and changes happening there. And that too, if you're looking at bigger organizations, definitely it's few and far between, right? And so with all these things in play, it required me to kind of push myself and put myself out there. So I think the first thing that I really leveraged was the mentor community inside Pivot first, to start feeling confident, right? And then slowly, obviously, some of the LinkedIn, uh, my earlier ex colleagues or ex bosses whom I could speak to, and kind of understand, how is it that I can place myself out and come back right into this thing. And also the most important thing when I did this was also to kind of understand how I can position my story more effectively, right? Because it's not just about listing down my past experiences. It required a lot of reframing and understanding how I can show value for today and for the role in the future. And so I think that's how I started approaching networking. It was intentional. I started reaching out to the right people, and also when I spoke to them, I had this very candid conversation in terms of where I am currently and where I really want to go and where I lack the confidence, and that kind of gave me more confidence to kind of start applying to the right roles. So this is how I approached my positioning or networking over there. And thankfully for me, things started working quickly. But for the audience here who's probably looking, it requires a bit of patience, and you need it. You don't have to do it alone. That's the message I want to give it out.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for sharing that, Yashasvi. I think without talking a lot about what Preeti has shared, because I think she structured her points very clearly and very nicely. I
Yeah.
just want to directly go into your takeaway with regard to networking, how it worked for you. I know that you have a lot to share on this front, so I would love to understand exactly stepwise like what you did, how you leveraged both your network, our network, in different ways.
Yeah. So, nature-wise, Preeti ji was very kind to say, that it was difficult for her to open up and, approach networking. And I really appreciate her for this candor and honesty. And I would encourage everyone to, understand themselves in this particular fashion. Do you know yourself that well? Once you do that, so for me, it was natural because my roles in the past have demanded that of me. A sales and partnerships guy has to be natural at networking, and nature wise, that's something that's synced. So once with Pivot, we identified what kind of roles I had to do. I connected to the mentors. They gave me a certain sense of where I am and what perhaps needed to be done. And the simple message regarding networking was go out there, meet people, add value to them. It's not a one-way street. Networking is never a one-way street. Unfortunately, DMs and messages like "I'm looking for a job. This is my CV," don't land you anywhere. Networking, and as Arjun had told me, kindly enough, is all a regular ongoing activity. So to everyone here, a very simple basic message before I get into anything else is please do networking literally every day of your life, because networking can come up with results very, very unexpectedly. The friends you make now can maybe perhaps help you with a very important thing 6 years down the line. So that's the very overarching message regarding networking. And now coming to the brass tacks, I went to people in my network who are in fintechs, who are in SaaS companies, talk to them. What does this role look like? What does the domain look like? Arjun encouraged me to go to communities. I was kind enough to find multiple communities, especially in SaaS, where I could see what people are saying, where I could see what people are doing, what's happening, live experiences, not theoretical stuff. And I'm still a part of those communities now to date, and I'm really thriving in seeing how people are. I have made friends through those communities. In fact, one of them have a meetup on Saturday, and even though I'm not in a SaaS role now, but I'm really keen to go forward and keep my relationship with those people. So it's very important to understand that building relationships is a long-term activity. And what you're doing essentially when you network is you're building a relationship with the next person. Because that's the only way they'll remember you and you will remember them. Otherwise, DMs to 100 people saying, "Sir, I found your profile. It's very nice. I'm looking for a role in your company. Can you please help?" Are very, regular of the run of the mill stuff. They don't remember you in the next minute. You don't remember them in the next minute.
Yeah.
Networking helped me to land my current role. And I'll spend a minute on that, Arjun. What actually happened was in one of the pivot in progress sessions, I was on the other side, and the founder of MORPHO-VERSE was a speaker. That was one of the few sessions of pivot in progress I actually attended. Sorry for that, Arjun. Uh, but When I heard that session, it was a very wonderful session. I listened to the entire piece. I had questions as well, which the panelists were kind enough to answer. I connected with both of them on LinkedIn. Natural, you have the profile link, you connect. Over time, started following the posts and understanding what is happening with this company, and that the about section of the founders page really resonated with me. The message she drove regarding what she is doing with MORPHO-VERSE and why she is doing it hit home, because I had felt certain stuff over the past decade in my earlier organizations, and what I wanted to do was exactly listed in those lines. The message was clear in those lines. With that in mind, I messaged her and said, "Can we meet? I just want to, say that I resonate with your approach and would just like to connect." That led to first meeting, which led to the second meeting, and here I am sitting with you in front of you with this title brand and growth partner at Morphovers. It was not imagined, it was not preempted. I really just wanted to, talk to her. Literally, that's about it. Didn't even think about saying कि मेरे को job दो.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough, and God was kind enough to help me with this job. So I'd like to leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I think so many good takeaways from what both of you have shared, and very different kind of journeys when it comes to networking, also, right? Preeti, I mean, ultimately, you did network
Yes.
despite the initial, hesitation or skepticism that you might have had. And, that's not uncommon, Preeti. Like, I have come across many professionals who do have some reservation for various reasons. Sometimes they're just bandwidth constraints. Sometimes they feel shy. Sometimes they have reached out, not gotten much results, so they feel like it's a waste of time. But I think once you do understand what actually works, it can be very powerful, as you have highlighted, Preeti. And okay, Yashasvi is just taking a second, but Yashasvi, I think whatever you highlighted, I think it was also very powerful. And to be very honest, even while we were going through your journey, I had complimented multiple times on how I felt that your networking skills were very strong, perhaps because of the prior role and experience that you have had. Where I know, I don't know, Yashasvi, if you really highlighted this aspect, but Yashasvi got multiple interviews through networking, right? Like almost once he entered the job search phase with us, I recall almost every week he was sending us an update. Oh, I had an interview here. This is how it went, right? And we would say, how did you land this? And 8 out of 10 times he would say, oh, I had been networking with this person. I just reached out, happened to know in my circle XYZ. So I think today networking definitely is the name of the game when it comes to job search. But the biggest factor of differentiation between people who use it as a tool to succeed versus just check the box is all these factors that both of them have shared. Meaning, number one, be very mindful of what you are saying in those messages rather than just, sharing something one size fit all that I need a job. You're much more customized and personalized in your outreach. You don't just talk about yourself, but you also talk about them and their work, right? I think the other thing is you have to get warm intros, not just cold outreach. You have to do intros through people you know. So it may not be the first degree connection, but it might be the second or third degree connection sometimes. So, for example, if you take Yashasvi, the person who he is working with today, the founder, it's basically a second degree connection for him, where he came to know about her through Pivot. But ultimately, now they are working together. So I think second degree and third degree connections actually are more powerful than first degree, right? You have to go beyond your closest knit network. And I think the third thing that I would just highlight here is that networking is not a perfect science. It's not going to work out 100% of the time. So people who are expecting that, okay, I reach out to five people and all those five or four maybe will, respond immediately to me and give me something which will ultimately help me land the job. It doesn't work like that. Similar to job search, right? You don't apply for just 10 roles and hope that, okay, one of those roles will convert.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand that there is a probabilistic game happening. There's maybe like 10 to 20, 25% probability that you'll hear back. But you have to be okay with failing 70% or 80% of the times for that 10, 20% success to happen. right? And you just have to keep going, stay resilient during those setbacks or ghosting that you might have, right? Um, but thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, Preeti, I think you want to.
Arjun, I just wanted to add one other part when it comes to networking, right? Again, not looking at networking like a very transactional thing, right? Like one time send a message and then you see a DM come back at you, and then once you've had like an interview and just close it there. Try to keep it a bit very authentic, and also try to take it long term is something that I've also learned out of this whole process of putting myself intentionally there, because I think I am currently in a role where it is important for me to have a lot of connects and networks, and also the city that I'm currently in terms of my job is Hyderabad, which is also another totally new city, right? So if you look at it, especially if you're in PR or marketing, external marketing, you definitely need to have the network, and you're not trying to use them just for the immediate this thing, right? You're trying to have that authentic conversation, try to either get some guidance or support, and then see if you can help them out at some point, right? So have it more organic in nature than a transactional approach, especially when it comes to a job search.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could not echo that more. I think one of the most important things. See, one of my really good friends who is also in, career strategy and coaching, he really put it beautifully that networking is kind of like opening up a bank account. You have to make deposits first before you withdraw from that relationship. You can't withdraw if you have nothing in your bank balance, right? So sometimes you have to sow the seeds of nurturing the relationship. I mean, I'm sure, Yashasvi, that's what you would probably tell a lot of people in sales, account management also,
Yeah.
right? You can't always look for benefit, because if you do, you'll fail massively. You have to sometimes give before you get.
Mhm.
So, anyways, I think this is important for us to highlight here, because we keep hearing from people, I'm networking, but I'm not hearing back. I'm reaching out to people, but it's not going anywhere. So people are doing it, but they're not doing it right, is the problem, right? And so I'm glad that you both were able to share very diverse and unique experiences with regard to your networking strategy. Let's get to the next topic here, which also I think is something we have heard from folks, because specifically of the current job market. I have not heard that before 2022, 23 that much. Okay, since 22, 23, since layoffs have become much more common, and it's also common now that job searches are taking much longer than they used to. Earlier, on average, it would take maximum 2, 3, 4 months, not more than that. Today, there are people, when they come to us for the first time, sometimes, I would say almost 30, 40% of them say, I've been applying to jobs already, and it's been months, it's been 6 months, 9 months, and I have not been able to land anything, right? There are about, I would say, at least 30% who've been going through this journey. Now, when you are in that kind of a, unemployed phase, or let's say even a phase where, you are trying to meet certain big financial goals and milestones for yourself, you may be getting married, you may have EMIs, you may be, starting a family, supporting your parents, your aging parents, so many different financial requirements that people have in the mid career level. So, you can't always just depend on your savings, if especially there is a layoff that has happened and you're transitioning to a new role. I would love to understand if you can share any, personal financial related insights or tips here, which helped you kind of navigate that wave between when you were employed to the time you got your next role. Is there anything regarding, your 2 year break that you have taken, Preeti, which you can share with us,
Yes.
that might be helpful to people here?
Definitely. I think, although, I mean, my career break, like I said, right, was for 2 years. But I took that initially, I took it with the fact that I really didn't want to look for anything immediately. But my main recommendation for those who are trying to looking to take a career break or trying to reevaluate what you want to do is first understanding your risk appetite, right? Whether you're risk averse or risk tolerant, that's most important first. And also see ensuring that you have at least 6 months worth of finance in place at all times, right? It is not just for someone who's trying to take a career break, but also when you are planning your finances, anything can come, even like you said, the reduction, any unfortunate situation can come up at any time, right, and bite you at the back. So it's important to ensure that you at least have 6 months of funds planned. For me, what I did was, I, although I was not actively in the job market, I was into the freelancing practice, right? Where I used my skills. I was helping with marketing for early stage founders and some of the agencies where I was writing as well, right? So that gave me some kind of flexibility to pay my bills, manage my expenses, and also when I knew I was ready to start looking for a job and I didn't want to continue with the break, it helped me kind of sustain the job search without feeling pressured, to jump into the very first opportunity that came. Because many a time we tend to think that, the minute you see financial pressure squeezing in, you start thinking that, okay, you know what, whatever comes my way, I'm just going to pick it up. But having
Mhm.
that financial cushion always gave me that space to be intentional about the opportunities that I wanted to prioritize. Like, for instance, I was very clear that this is the kind, like marketing and comms, I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into the corporate side of the thing. So I was very intentional about the opportunities that I was looking for the next phase or next leg of my career journey. And I didn't want to make rushed decisions. So, therefore, I continued doing freelancing, which was supporting me substantially. But for people who are not, I mean, especially in the IT, it's easier, right? And marketing side, it's easier. But then if you're looking at some other areas or jobs where you're not able to, I think a smaller opportunity with smaller organizations in the interim, right, or consulting somewhere else where you really good with your expertise will really help kind of manage this, and obviously ensure that even when you're in a job first, like at least 6 months, you cushion yourself for whatever it is worth.
I think all very valid points here. Definitely, a lot of the things that you have highlighted, I'm sure will resonate with people. Yashasvi, I mean, I'm sure with your situation as well, you must have at least thought about your financial requirements, how you're going to make sure you meet them during the job search phase as well as post job search once you have landed the role. So, what was your journey like, and your sort of mindset around finances during job search?
When I became clear about that I wanted to make a transition,
Hmm.
I spoke to my family first and said that this is what I want to do, because for me, the peace of going to the desired destination was paramount. And I reiterate this: the peace of going through a structured process to get to my desired destination was paramount. And that feeling is something everyone here who's transitioning should have and should cherish. Now, coming to the money part, to be very honest, most of us, with God's grace, have had careers which have helped us, live our lives well. Some of us, and most of us would have saved. Indians have a natural tendency to save, and I'm sure most of us would have saved and kept some. Speaking about myself, I have started saving since my first paycheck came in, and the cushion which I built up over the last decade, along with certain choices, like I am someone who's okay with taking personal loans, for example. You know, so both of these helped me to ensure that the house stayed afloat. Whatever expenses I had were met, and I did not have to face financial stress. My journey, Arjun, took 5.5 months. From mid-April, when my last day was, to in September when I joined MORPHO-VERSE, was 5.5 months. And in these 5.5 months, I never felt financial stress, and that's purely because I pre-planned, and that's something which we all should do. Is, as Preeti ji said, which ideal to have 6 months of financial balance with you. Savings is a must. If you save through bank account, you save through mutual funds, that's your choice. But having liquid savings is really, really important. So whatever way you want to do it, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Be okay with taking the right kind of loans to furnish, to help you with these times. Ensure that you do take the right kind of loans and not 20-25% loans.
Yeah.
And be careful about, how you go about this. Having said this, the overarching feeling is not money, is ensuring that you make the next step properly. Because for me, it was very important that the next step where I came in was something I'd stick to for the next 5 years at least. And when you hit that, all financial worries you may have had in the interim go away. As you know, a famous movie line said, chase excellence in your work, money will follow. So those who know Hindi or who have seen that Three Idiots movie would know this line, and that's what I have to leave it with.
Yeah. No, that is an excellent line. Yeah, I think savings definitely, and ensuring that you have a good relationship with money where you don't feel stressed out about money all the time is important, because if you're stressed out about money, it will impact a lot of other things, even with regard to the quality of your job search. A lot of times you may come across as very desperate. I think Preeti and Yashasvi both pointed this out. You should not be in that extremely high stress desperate situation that you have to take whatever comes your way. And to be very honest, a lot of times, for better or worse, when people sense that you've only applied to a job for money and you're in dire straits because of money, right, that can actually send the wrong message, and you may actually not really get the success that you are looking for in your job search. So money is an important component of job search and your career. So I think it's important to uh, have the tools and insights to manage it and make it an asset for you, as opposed to make it more of a liability. All right, like we have covered a lot of good ground here. There's one key topic though which we have not covered yet, which is, once you have started applying to jobs and you're getting interviews, how do you convert those and how do you negotiate in case the offer does not meet your expectations? So again, fairly common experience. I'm sure many people have gone through this experience. But now, one of the things that we are realizing is it's not just that people are getting fewer callbacks or they're taking more applications to get more callbacks. That is definitely the bigger challenge. But many times we have also seen and heard from especially mid career professionals, people who have somewhere between, let's say, 7, 8 years experience to about 20 years experience, that they're going through multiple interview rounds, one after the other. And generally they are not getting very negative feedback or even any constructive feedback saying, hey, this didn't work for us. Many times they're just being ghosted, or they just get that very kind of cookie cutter email that, okay, things didn't work out, all the best, and we have gone ahead with another candidate. Now I would love to understand from both of you, when you started your job search and started getting interviews, Yashasvi, I know you got like a lot of interviews. You already, discussed that at a high level. Preeti, I'm sure you also had a couple of different interviews and couple of interview rounds as well with the same company. So how was that experience in terms of identifying what is working well for you? What is the narrative you should go for, especially for the tricky questions? Like if you're answering, hey, you have a 2 year gap on your resume, we have many candidates without any gaps, why should we hire you? So these are not easy questions to answer, right? How did you build those narrative around the challenging questions and ultimately, went from getting an interview to getting the role?
Yeah, I think the first thing, it's a very good discussion to have on this, especially Arjun. I think the first conversation that we had, I remember you as part of the career framework discussion. The first question that you asked was, when why do you need this job, right? Like, is it for financial reasons, is it for career growth, or is it something else, right? Because that question can give you the answers of how confident you can be in an interview, right? Because if you're doing it, like you already said, connecting back to the earlier uh, section, right? Like if it's financial reasons, then the way you portray yourself in an interview will be, in that manner, be it your body language or the kind of things that you talk about also is that. So I think the most important part is, instead of focusing on justifying, like for me it was not about focusing on justifying my career gap, but I articulated my current, the experience that I have and the growth that I've had during my break. Obviously, because I was not just doing freelancing, I was also kind of upskilling myself. By doing those freelancing projects, I learned a lot through what is happening. It's not just through a direct job in an organization. Even as a consultant, you tend to learn a lot, right? Like in the projects that you do. And also some of the certifications that I was also doing, I mean, simple things like going through podcasts or YouTube, you learn a lot even through that. So how to use that to position your growth in terms of learning and the value that you can bring. So connecting all these three uh, was most important for me in when I was attending an interview. And obviously I know that Pivot has interview prep sessions. I'm sure, I mean, let's be honest, I didn't go through that to that level, because I think by then I had some of these interview sessions that came to me. So
Yeah.
what I did was, at that point, was to kind of before any interview, kind of write down my, I'm really traditional in that manner, so I used to write down my strengths and my weaknesses and what is it that I have today. Even my resume, it was not just to kind of satisfy the ATS, because that's just an entry to get you into the interview. But how do you approach the interview and how do you talk to different people? Because knowing how many rounds you have, and each of them, what is the expectation, not just with respect to the role, but also in terms of what value you can bring to each of them, can help you do well when you approach an interview or even your negotiation angle, right? And when you look at it from a negotiation angle, uh, you need to think broad, right? It's not just the salary package that you need to look at. Is there learning that I'll get out of this? Is there mentorship? Are there flexible arrangements that I can get right out of this? So these are other uh, perks that you can you call it invisible perks for a lack of better word. Like, these are things that you need to look at if the organization is able to provide you with, right? And all of this will kind of help you do better when it comes to negotiations over there. And also try to rehearse, before you go for an interview, try to see, picture yourself, like what is the impact you can make in the first 90 days, right? If you picture yourself in that, then it's easier for you to show potential value, and you're not trying to kind of impress anybody, you're just trying to put yourself out there authentically to the interviewer. So that's how I approached the interview for myself.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of the things that you talked about are perhaps similar to what we would do. I think, for example, with Yashasvee, we did do a couple of these specific things as well. And one thing I just want to highlight before I get Yashasvee, your input is, um, there's no one size fit all kind of an interview prep strategy. I like, Preeti said she's a little more traditional in terms of writing down those strengths and weaknesses. A lot of times we have also seen people, they have talking points. They don't necessarily have strengths and weaknesses mapped out, but they have talking points based on examples, based on, the experience that they have so far in their career. And sometimes people even wing it. They don't really go through like writing down points. They just map it out in their head a little bit and then they do it. So I think to each their own, but the practice part is something which I do feel is very critical, right? If you are just doing it on your own without any external support, where you have done a mock interview or practice with somebody who can give you more objective feedback, I think it may work, but you're just depending on luck in that factor, and luck is not a strategy, right?
Mhm.
So I think that aspect I would suggest that everybody takes away from Preeti's interview preparation strategy. And Yashasvi, I would love to obviously understand your strategy as well, how it worked for you.
Yeah. So regarding interviews, one feeling which I've always had now as well in the past, is to be as authentic about yourself as you can be, because self authenticity is natural to everyone. It can't be forced and it can't be manufactured. Self authenticity for me carries me naturally and amplifies my strength when I'm in an interview. That's the first thing. Second thing, and Arjun, thank you for the HR round we had. You need to know when you speak in a mock round, especially in the mock HR round, I had highlight which I had with Arjun. There were certain questions. First we thought, should we do it, should we not do it? Then we did it. There were certain questions he asked, and I gave my responses to that. I'm somebody who believes in on the cuff, or let's say off the cuff responses, because they come from here and they're not rehearsed, and we fine tune that. You spoke this correctly. This can be tweaked in this way. It's important for everyone of us to understand that our story is our story, so we own our story. Nothing about it needs to be layered up. We don't have to manufacture stuff. We don't have to sugarcoat stuff. But what we do need to do is present it in a way to the person in front of us, which helps carry the message through. And that is something which a mock interview, see, mock interviews are of two ways. One is the HR round, which you can have, somebody who's an HR friend of yours, or at Pivot, Arjun helped me with it. Other one is the session with a domain expert. So if I'm going for a role in a fintech, I, by with God's grace, have a very close friend who helped me in multiple such fintech interviews. He said, I discussed with him, this is a role they have, fintech and banking kind of interviews. And he said, this is the exact questions they might ask you. These are the possible ways you can prepare for that. And I was able to then anticipate and prepare my answers should those kind of questions arise. So that's all you can do, is by way of natural preparation as about yourself and about the work you're about to go into. And then, of course, the most important bit is connecting with the interviewer, because the interviewer, end of the day, is a person just like you. You're assessing him or her, he's assessing you, he or she is assessing you. It's a two-way assessment.
Yeah.
And the more you're able to bring across your point naturally to that person, the unsaid connection builds. I remember a few of the rounds where I moved to the next stage. These points were very, very clearly, I mean, very, very clearly put out, that your connection you built with the interviewer was really, really strong, and they got you through. I mean, in fact, one of the interviews, remember, Arjun, I was telling you that I don't think I'll make it through to the next stage. But a few days later, the HR called and said, we'll set up your second round. And I was honestly pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But that's what they said, that the interview really liked the way you were and how you put out yourself to the questions asked. So that's something I really encourage everyone to do. Understand yourself first and use your strengths in your interview, because everyone has weaknesses. We are all humans, everyone will have weaknesses. There's absolutely no point stressing over them or hiding them. Own your strengths, own your weaknesses, and present yourself in a thoughtful way to the person in front of you, honestly.
Yeah. No, well said. Well said. Um, I know we have run out of time. We covered a lot of things. There's one question that we have gotten, at least we can quickly cover that maybe in the next minute or two, without taking much time, if that's okay with both of you.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do I approach a junior position with more experience? Okay, so basically a person who might have more experience, but maybe they're trying to go for a relatively junior role because the market is competitive, or they're transitioning to a new domain.
Hmm.
Um, and also one of the reasons is actually they've highlighted, which is that they're not ready to take on more demanding and like a more responsibility oriented kind of a job title. Not sure if either of you have gone through exactly this, in terms of going for a relatively, junior role compared to what your experience warrants. But is there anything that you would suggest to such a person? Because we have seen ageism, over experience, over qualification, sometimes playing a, negative impact on people's job search as well. There are folks who have 15 years experience. When they apply, they get to hear back, oh, we are only looking for 5 to 10 years experienced professionals, right? So any thoughts on this one? Either of you feel free to take a stab at it.
Arjun, I'd like to talk
Yeah.
about this from my side, right? I mean, I remember, I think this is before the break, right? Like, I've obviously gone through interviews, then obviously the interviews have been different. So there are two ways you can look at it, right? One is the employer perspective, where, you apply for it, you go in for the job, and somewhere down the line, internally, the organizational priorities change, and then they realize that, after they've advertised for the role, that, sometimes the position is, doesn't want such an overqualified person, right? So that's one angle to look at it. Now, from a job seeker standpoint, right, and you know that you have a lot of experience, but then you still want to go for a junior position. um, I don't see there is anything wrong if you think that, because I know, one of the people, like in my earlier job, one of my team members, he's really good at his job, right? And it's just that sometimes, he has lacked confidence, where he feels like, he's openly also spoken about it, that sometimes he feels he's not ready for the next role, and he just wants to continue doing this, or do a little more in this, or maybe, is there something more, in the same thing, that he can move on a broader side but not go
Yeah.
vertically at the top. So
Mm.
I think the best thought recommendation I gave him was, see, you're not going to be, by doing a role where you're going to keep moving in the same levels, you're not, it's not about growth. You're going to get more experience there, but then there should be a point where you get out of the comfort zone, and
Yeah.
then, look for something, especially now, for someone, when I come to my story, if I need to kind of pivot to the next level, I
Yeah.
always want to start preparing for what that JD has in place, right? So that tomorrow I can start, positioning my story in such a way that, hey, I've done this, I've done that. So, are there side projects that they can do, for the next level, but still do the junior role? This is how we can look at it, right? Where you don't feel like the job is demanding per se, but at the same time, you're able to get the experience of, doing a certain project
Yeah.
and understanding, the complexity over there. So this is how I would approach, this kind of a situation.
Got it. Yashasvi, I think you might want to add something here, but just please be mindful of time. We probably want to start wrapping things up soon. But yeah, please feel
Yes.
free to go ahead and add anything you would like here.
Sure. So I just went through the comment, and the person said that they are not ready to take a more demanding and responsible job title, which I really applaud. You know where you are and you know what you want. So that's the first great step you have. Now, how to approach the junior position with more experience is to then understand your fitment in terms of the job responsibilities and in terms of the compensation package. Now, when you talk to the interviewer in front of you, you need to articulate both points very clearly. If the position is junior, then obviously the responsibilities will be different to what you are used to, right? So you need to then understand, am I able to get through them and discharge the duties effectively? One. Secondly, on the compensation part, because you're knowingly going for a junior position, your compensation will alter. So first understand and make peace with yourself with regards to the altered compensation, and then transfer that peaceful state of mind to the person in front of you. That's all you need to do. The work's yours.
Great. All right. I think that brings us to a close for today's session. And I am really happy that we did this. Thank you again so much, Preeti and Yashasvi. I think you shared a lot of length and breadth and depth of insights. Um, and, a lot of the things which you have shared, I think, will cascade to multiple people and, they will benefit from it. There are going to be certain things which you take and they might not necessarily always work for you because, like we said, job search and career transitions are personalized journeys. They are not
Yeah.
one size fit all. um,
Mhm.
so try to understand the first principle thinking, the fundamentals that need to be applied, but do adapt it for yourself. That's very, very important. But yeah, like I said, I think it's a very intense and difficult job market for many people, given the layoffs, given AI, and how it's impacting so many other industries and domains. So please see if you need any sort of support. Get out of your echo chamber. Reach out to your friends or platforms like Pivot or people like Yashasvee and Preethi who are always there to share their experience and insights to help you out. Um, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you again, everybody, for joining in and asking your questions, staying engaged. And thanks again, Preeti and Yashasvi, for being here, doing a wonderful job of sharing your job search experience.
Thank you, Arjun.